Max Verstappen passes Fernando Alonso's pole position total in an absorbing qualifying session today. Welcome back to the Grid Talk podcast. This is episode 287, and today we will be reviewing today's Monaco Grand Prix qualifying. I'm your host, Tom Horrox, and today I am joined by Grid Talk host Louis Edwards.
Hello.
From Paddock Pals, Rachel Kapusta.
Hi.
And another Grid Talk member, Mr. Tom Downey.
Hello.
Before we get going, we'd just like to thank this week's sponsor, which is, as usual, Bet Online. BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL, hockey, right to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to get in on the action. And be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. So I don't know about everyone else here in the room today, but I found that an incredibly absorbing qualifying session, and lots of screaming going on in my house as well, just never knowing who was going to come out on top. But once again, Louis, it was Verstappen on top. He really did save the best till last today.
Yeah, I mean, Saturday is where it happens at Monaco. We all tune in probably more on a Saturday than a Sunday because of just how good qualifying is. And Max Verstappen, absolutely amazing final sector to snatch pole. I thought it was, cut and dry. Fernando's got this. Max is 0.2 off the pace, and then suddenly, boom, Max goes fastest with a little speed boost off the wall coming out the final corner. But genuinely amazing stuff yet again. These cars may look a bit big and clunky during the racing, but when they are going full out through the streets of Monaco, there is few sights in Formula One that could ever beat it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And for an absolute hot minute there, I was convinced that it was going to be Fernando Alonso on pole there, Rachel. And what did you think of his performance today? And just how close did he come to getting pole in the...
Oh, he was amazing today. He was pushing on the limit. He said he was driving like an animal, and I totally saw it. It was great to see him out on track. He just struggled a bit in that last sector. And I think if he could have pulled that off and pulled that together, I think he would have had pole. But we all know Fernando tomorrow, he's going to shoot right off that line and go for it on Max into turn one. So I'm excited to see that tomorrow. But, I feel like Fernando just had a really, really great day today.
Yeah, absolutely. He was definitely behind in that third sector, the only really high-speed section of the Monaco track there, with a couple of high-speed-ish corners, if you can call them that, really. So it was a phenomenal performance from Fernando Alonso, and Charles Leclerc in third place. Then Tom, it looks like he may have lifted the penalty, or has he? Because it looks like he may well potentially be in line for a steward's inquiry.
Yeah, so there's nothing confirmed yet for Leclerc's penalty. He has been summoned for impeding Lando in Q3. Mind you, that's probably the quickest Lando was ever going to go. And I mean, it's, to coin a phrase that Martin Brundle knows, it's probably going to be slam dunk. If there's any way that you're going to get impeded, it's going to be Monaco, because, as we all know, unfortunately, Leclerc did impede him. He got very close to the barriers, but he just didn't really have that extra sort of 0.2, 0.3 that Max and Fernando had.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just one of those sessions again. There, you just couldn't take your eyes off it. There was just always something going on. And talk about just not taking your eyes off things. You take your eyes off for for a tenth of a second, and all of a sudden Fernando Alonso comes up, and not Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon. We've already done Fernando Alonso. Esteban Ocon crops up and sticks it in pole position, or what we thought. And we honestly, Lou, we thought, could this really be an Alpine pole position for, on the weekend that everyone was talking about Fernando Alonso potentially getting that pole position for his old nemesis, Esteban Ocon. I'm going to stop calling him Fernando Alonso at some point. Esteban Ocon to put it on that provisional pole, and then in the end, fourth place really came out of nowhere today. Where did that come from the Alpines?
I don't know. And they were, they were saying on the commentary that Alpine had been saying that they liked their chances. They thought, they'd get a drive in the top 6, and I don't think they quite anticipated Ocon going as fast as being on provisional pole. But it's incredible just how close we've had of a battle around Monaco. Of course, it's always quite close because of the nature of the circuit, but wow, it was between, 3-4 teams, and they all looked incredibly fast. And when Ocon went fast, it was by a tenth. It wasn't like by narrow margins. It was quite significant. And I think it definitely did raise a few eyebrows. And it's great for Alpine. They've been having a pretty horrid start of this season. And to be in fourth place, there is definitely chances for podium there if any sort of safety cars, red flags, whatever, come up tomorrow. But Ocon is in an amazing place.
Yeah, and that with that front row with Fernando and Verstappen alongside each other, a potential penalty for Sainz. For Leclerc. We could well see a return to that Hungarian Grand Prix win. It's definitely a possibility there. It's long odds, but certainly worth thinking about. Next up then is Carlos Sainz. Then Rachel, fifth place, really on the back foot all day. Is he going to be relieved at this fifth place?
I think it's kind of what we all expected coming into this weekend, maybe fourth, because no one really expected Esteban to pop up in there. And so I feel like it was kind of as expected. He kind of really didn't make any headlines during this qualification either. It was all the other names popping to the top of the charts. And then I feel like I barely even was watching Carlos Sainz, but it's definitely good for him. He's in a good position to score some points.
Yeah, it was very much anonymous all day, but I think a good recovery from that practice crash and to recover to P5 in the end, decent return. But I was thinking perhaps maybe Ferrari might be off a little bit more. And the next up then is Sir Lewis Hamilton. Then Tom, a very scrappy session. The upgrade not really meant to be bedded in and tested on this circuit, but he just kept putting in those laps at the last minute, and in the end out qualifying Russell. Will he be happy with that, or disappointed that he's really at the back of the third row?
No, Hamilton's never happy, is he? He's always thinking misery guts. He's even got blimmin' side pods now, and he's still moping. Mind you, he did put it in the ball in FP3, so what can you say? I mean, he was whinging to Bono, saying that that his tires weren't ready or that they cooled down, and he then goes and puts it comfortably in the top 10. We had it in Q1 and in Q2. Both times he's sort of on the cusp, and then partially because the track was ramping up, but Hamilton does go very well around Monaco. He's won 3 times and poles, and obviously he's one of the best drivers we've ever had in F1, and I'd stand by that. Even as a Max fan. So yeah, he'll be pleased to out-qualify his teammate. I mean, the first person you're always judged against is your teammate, and he's beaten him. Some people may say, but Jones was ahead, get home. Doesn't matter. Hamilton's qualified ahead of him when it really mattered, and ultimately, it was I'd say a good result for Hamilton. I'd say probably as good as it could have got for him.
Yeah, P6 probably all he was looking for, but there's the Mercedes fans out there probably would have been hoping for a little bit more from this upgrade package, given that P6 was pretty much where he was before the weekend. But going on to P7 then, Pierre Gasly then, Louis, do you think he would have taken P7 at the start of the day? However, probably a little bit disappointed to be behind Ocon.
Yeah, I mean, any driver is going to be disappointed to finish behind their teammate, and I think it just goes to say that Ocon did an amazing job, and I think Gasly is where we were probably more or less expecting that Alpine to be. I think we shouldn't take it away from Gasly that he's done, I would say, a very decent job in that Alpine. The team will be generally happy that they've got both drivers in the top 10. Good chance of points with the lack of overtaking. And while Gasly himself will probably be disappointed that Ocon was able to get, that much more out of the car, I don't think he can be overly disappointed, because it's going to be, hopefully if he keeps his nose clean, then it's going to be bang on for points.
One of the most closely contested teammate battles there. And also this weekend, having those 2 penalty points from Miami last year have dropped off. So he's a few more points away from a potential race ban. So he is now allowed to crash into his teammate all he wants for this weekend anyway. So next up then was George Russell then, Rachel. 8th place, seemed to have a bit of an issue with setup at the start of the weekend, seemed to recover well. And again, at one point, he was looking quite racy in the first two sessions. But again, happy or disappointed with the performance today?
They came with so many changes with that car. And at a track like Monaco, it's definitely not the best to test all of that out at. So, maybe he just wasn't as comfortable with that. I think he'll be disappointed with where he ended up on there. I kind of thought maybe he could get a little bit more out of the car. But like I said, it is new, and literally their floor got exposed, same as Red Bull when that crane came out, which is they're gonna get rid of those cranes. They have to. The teams are gonna be hoping they get rid of those so they don't get exposed like that. But George, I feel like he'll be disappointed, but in a good spot to get points. If something happens, maybe he could gain a few places.
Yeah, I mean, there's no tracks like Monaco to pass. No, literally, there's no tracks like Monaco to pass. But I think it's definitely a case of form an orderly queue behind that Red Bull when they were taking the pictures. I'm sure that all the photographers were there taking a picture of the underside of that Red Bull, and probably the Mercedes as well. But it's a really good point that you mentioned about the fact that it is an all new car, and these are the best drivers in the world. But to throw them onto a circuit like Monaco with a car they've never driven and then expect them to be right on the pace, it's probably quite a lot we're asking of them there. So we'll give Mercedes a pass for this weekend, I think, and we'll judge them after Barcelona from our Zoom calls and our sofas. These world-class drivers. So moving on then we'll do the AlphaTauris both together then, with Yuki Tsunoda in P9 and Nick De Vries a much better weekend in P12. Seriously impressive from Tsunoda at times today, Tom. How did you rate their performance?
So Tsunoda, I was impressed. I mean, given the sort of struggles they've had this year, and coming into Monaco, I think a lot of people were saying, oh God, when is De Vries going to be in the wall? When is he going to morph into De Vries this weekend? And Tsunoda just being Tsunoda. But no, they both kept it really clean. They both put in, really good respectable laps, and yes, obviously they'll have driven around here in Formula 3 and Formula 2, and Nick De Vries' race ramp here in Formula E. But it's different to do it in an F1 car because things are so much faster. They stop so much quicker. Everything is just heightened and faster, and things happen quicker, and the pressures are different. The pressure is much higher. So De Vries especially really, really impressed with him today. You could say that obviously there's more pace in the AlphaTauri, and yeah, there is, because Tsunoda was P9, but De Vries is only 3 positions behind him, and he was keeping Tsunoda honest. Tsunoda has been in F1 for 2 years prior. This is his 3rd year in the sport, and his 2nd year with the type of F1 cars. When this is the first time De Vries has been in an F1 car around Monaco, and obviously these 2022 onwards cars. So yeah, De Vries especially, bravo, son. It's the speculation, and which is never going to happen, about Danny Ric taking seat or the rest of it. He basically just stuck 2 fingers up to them and said, "Look, hang on, son. I won F2, I won F3. Yes, I've had a bit of a slow start, but he's adjusting, and he's really beginning to show promise now."
Yeah, 100%. And as I think, just talks of De Vries losing his drive just seem insane, to be honest. And also the first ever Dutch world champion in motorsport as well. We can't forget that. That's that's specifically for Tom. That one is there. So next up then is with the other rookie, or one of the other rookies in the field, with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Not very much not a rookie anymore. Then Louis McLaren 10th and 11th. Norris blocked by Leclerc on his last run. And again, we're still waiting to find out about that. Piastri, P11, just about right for McLaren?
Yeah, they've definitely taken a step forward, which has been very nice to see. I think there's possibly a bit more potential, maybe from Norris. Of course, he did have his issue in Q2 where he did break the left front, I think, to then slam into the exit of back. So I think you have to give props mostly to the McLaren engineers for even getting Lando out and getting him to even set a lap time in Q3, because that was a mega turnaround to make sure that car was ready to go out. But whether or not he would have been able to get much faster, I think P8 may have been a bit of a stretch for Norris if he was able to get a clean lap in. But that's by the by. He's got to take what comes at him tomorrow and see what he can do, and most importantly, hold on to those points-paying positions.
Yeah, and if they really want to be fighting with Alpine in the championship for this kind of fifth place, best of the rest, it's like Formula 1.5, whatever you want to call it, then they need to be scoring those minor points and just hoping for a repeat of Australia for the Alpines further ahead. But yeah, I think 10th and 11th, bottom end points, double points finished. They'll take that right now, I think, McLaren. Williams, though, a little bit further away from points, Rachel. You got Albon in 13th and Sargent in 16th. Although it could have been a bit of a massacre this weekend for Williams, given their cornering performance. And, they are ahead of an Aston Martin as well. So it shows that it was a difficult situation out there. Track was ramping up all the time. So, I mean, not on the face of it, not great, but pretty much, as best as Williams could really hope for.
Yes, I completely agree. I think points are going to be really difficult for them this weekend based on where they're at now. I thought Alex did a really good job with what he had. And then, Logan wasn't that far out of making it out of Q1. So, I was pretty impressed with him. He's getting a little bit better and better each week. He's still quite anonymous week by week, but hopefully we see more out of him and really see if he has what it takes.
Yeah, he was. I've just checked. He was less than a 10th behind Valtteri Bottas to drop out in Q1 there, Logan Sargent. So definitely improving, and a solid driver. But just that Williams can't show him what he is capable of right now. And hopefully, as the season goes on and the aero restrictions kick in for the teams further ahead, they can develop some pace into that car. And moving on to Lance Stroll, then Tom, you get the honour. Under investigation for a weighbridge infraction, but how was he out in Q2 again?
You just love giving me the drivers that I love to talk about. Thank you. Appreciate that a lot. Stroll, oh man, everybody after is either FP2, FP2. Oh look, Stroll P3 and Alonso only P12. Yeah, well, let's shut you up quick, didn't it, son? Normality has been restored. And Stroll has proved once again that he is all bark and no bite. And with how competitive that Aston Martin is, even though Big Papi Stroll owns the team, you do have to wonder how much longer he can be in that seat. Although his dad owns the team, so he's fine. He's probably got a pension and everything. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where it went wrong for him. The weighbridge incident, I just want to talk about quickly. It's, yes, okay, he missed a weighbridge, but he was already in the pit lane and he'd already passed two marshalling posts, which were saying, Stroll, come on through, and then at the last second it said, actually, no, get your ass in the weighbridge. And he was so far past, sort of like even not so much so far past the turning point, but he had seen two or three signs that were already saying, you just come straight through, you're not getting called in. I said to Tom earlier, I said it's very similar to Hamilton Monza 2020, where there was sort of nothing, and then next thing you know, bang, it needs to change. And obviously in Hamilton's case, pit lane closed, and he still came in. Unfortunately, Stroll did miss the weighbridge, and and his mechanics jacked the car up. All the rest of it, they might not have even been aware by the time and then by the time they'd already jacked the car up, it's just too late. It's probably going to be a penalty. It's usually a stand. I think it might even be a DSQ from qualifying. I don't know. I've been refreshing the FIA website. Nothing yet. He's still been summoned. So we'll find out later on. He may get sort of like mitigating circumstances. I kind of hope so, but also rules are rules. So it kind of sticks to one half, doesn't of the other with this, but it doesn't excuse his rather lackluster performance today again.
Yeah, that first opening weekend where we were talking about how impressed we were with Lance Stroll does seem to be a long way away at the moment. And but I do agree that it would be harsh for a penalty given like how late it was, but like you rightly say, the rules is rules, unfortunately, and by that point it didn't affect his lap time. He genuinely was out in Q2 from lap time, so it's a disappointing day. And from there, we know Monaco, we know what's going to happen from there. So it's going to be a long day for him. And Louis, we'll move on to Alfa Romeo. Once again, very anonymous, but although we did see Zhou pop up in pole at one point in Q1, but 19th overall, 15th for Bottas, just scraping through ahead of Logan Sargent, as we've already mentioned. Is this like they kind of returned to what Alfa were before 2022? So they kind of like they're back down to that kind of second to last team again and not really progressing very far. How do you rate their performance?
I've always found it difficult to get a read on this Alfa Romeo team because they are just so completely all over the place. And, it's obviously this performance is much better than what we saw in Baku when they were completely just dead last. And Bottas was having an absolute nightmare weekend. P15 is, probably where I would have expected the Alfa Romeo to be. They're not particularly fancy in their ways. They are just kind of plodding around. They are just grinding these last few years out until that team becomes Audi. I think that's pretty much the only thing we can say about them at the moment. They're just waiting for that massive cash injection, that whole sort of new technical team to come in and start running things and hopefully turn the fortune to this team around. Otherwise, for now, I think the drivers are just doing what they can and they will just keep going as they do. They're not really going to be too worried that they're not competing as much with the Williams as they probably should be. But as I said, they're not going to be overly bothered by it because it's all about 2026.
Yeah, it's definitely the shades of the Giovinazzi Raikkonen years at the moment, which got me so exacerbated to be talking about Alfa Romeo on this podcast. And I don't want to return to those days. I genuinely got excited by Alfa Romeo last year, and I want to see more of that. And I want to see them fighting for points, and they're just nowhere at the moment. And I just hope that the Audi money starts coming in and they start ramping up development, but there's a long way to go. And another team that kind of a very similar boat to Alfa Romeo. Like they looked so good last year. They've shown moments of speed this year, Rachel, and that's the Haas team, 17th and 18th though. I mean, yeah, they beat a Red Bull, but that's because he's backed it into the wall. So, what's your take on the two Haas drivers?
I was extremely shocked when they got out and how low they were. I mean, especially from Hülkenberg this year, we've seen some amazing qualifying sessions where he's been able to put in these great laps. And we didn't see that today. And I was pretty shocked, especially in Q1, how the track just kept ramping up and we kept seeing names that we don't usually see at the top jump up there. I was kind of surprised we didn't see that Haas name up there a bit more. They just couldn't really get on the pace, I guess. I don't know if maybe their car is not suited for this track. I'm really not sure what happened. But I personally was pretty shocked to see them down there. I don't know if anyone else wasn't. Maybe I'm just over enthusiastic about Haas, I guess. But I was really shocked that they were all the way down there.
Yeah, I thought genuinely there was a moment where I thought they were going to play a blinder. They were sitting in the pits waiting and then going out on the fresh tires right at the end. But it seemed like the track evolution and the time on track was the most important thing, which we all know that time on track is incredibly important in Monaco, and that may well be it's part of the reasons why people like Sainz, who had a bit of an off, and Albon they struggled today because they didn't have as much time on track. It's definitely a possibility, but a long day tomorrow. It doesn't look. I mean, the rain that was forecast at the start of the week, that's now pushed into Monday, so it's likely we're going to have a dry race. So Monaco likely not to see an awful lot happening unless we get some red flags in the safety cars. But even red flags aren't that common at Monaco, not as common as you would think. But we still have one more driver to talk about, and true to form, Tom, here we go. It's Sergio Perez, the number 2 driver to your man Max Verstappen. You're so despondent with him that you've just put a hole in the walls with your head. What happened today?
My head was just mimicking what he did to the barrier, and I've probably got about the same amount of brain cells left. No, it was Perez. It was so much had been. Oh, he king of the streets. Yeah, all right, mate, calm down. He's king of the streets so much he tried to marry the barrier at Saint-Devote. I think he got a bit spooked by a fairly sure it was one of the Alpines that was on the racing line but going slowly, and then quite late on that Alpine almost just swerved into the pit lane to get out the way, and Perez just caught himself out. He should have he should have abandoned that run and gone into the runoff of turn 1. He might have been carrying so much speed, he might not have even stopped if he had even have got into the runoff at turn 1, to be honest, thinking about it. The speed he was going to, he was never going to make that. And you could see when he turned in, the rear of the car was just not living with it. It just completely over-rotated, and it was quite similar to Albon's crash. So maybe it's that Red Bull second seat curse confirmed. He took a one heck of a whack, and it was. I'm glad Checo's okay. He's same with Albon on Friday. But that's going to be new suspension, probably front and rear on the left, new wings front and rear, maybe floor damage. We don't know. Most likely a new gearbox, because that gearbox took again. It was a really, really heavy impact, because obviously those barriers are not forgiving, and it spat them back out. So yeah, his mechanics have got their work cut out. It looks like Checo won't be getting back-to-back wins in Monaco. Not that I don't think he was going to anyway. It's for all the talk at the start of the season of Checo's going to take the title fight to Max and all the rest of it. Nah, this is Max is doing what he does, and he's just kicked it up a gear, and as evidenced by his pole position today, and yeah, it's a bit like sort of like with Bottas, I think it's 2019, where he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to scrap the title. Okay, mate, whatever you say. And then he sort of just slipped into that number 2 role. The same with Sainz last year. It's just, even if Red Bull don't say it, we all know Max is the number 1 driver, and for good reason. He's a double world champion. And that order, whether it is enforced by the team or whether it sort of like just occurs naturally, which is what's beginning to happen. I like Checo, but he is not Alonso, Max, Hamilton, Leclerc level. He's not. He's a good number 2. That's a bit of a contradiction in terms. He's a good second driver, but he's never going to be the next best thing. He brings good experience, and he's a good team player, very good team player. But he's he's not gonna. He's not really going to challenge for the title. And today, I think that's a bit of a just starting to see those cracks appear.
Yeah, 100% agree. I do liken it very much to, like you said, about Valtteri Bottas and those championship years. I think these world-class drivers, these Leclercs, Hamiltons, Verstappens, Alonsos, that they start the season, they have, the teammates seems to be very close to their performance, start talking about, can they challenge them? And then they just kick into another gear and they just find something extra and just push on. Whether it's the maturity of knowing that the championship is 21, 22, 23 races long, or whether it's just too exhausting to keep up that relentless pursuit of perfection that you need to perform at that level week in, week out. But I think one thing we know for sure is that Verstappen is 100% the team leader in that team, and very likely to go on to win the championship and a lot more races this year. Well, that is your grid for the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix, which is tomorrow. We will just have a bit more fun with predictions, though. So I'll come to you first, Louis. Then, who are you going to pick for your podium tomorrow?
I'm going to go with Fernando Alonso to win the race. He's going to send it, as Rachel said, he's going to send it at Sandoval. Max Verstappen second. And then I'm going to assume that Leclerc is going to get a penalty. So then I'm going to go Ocon P3. Nice.
I mean, yeah, it's. I think any Fernando Alonso win would definitely be worth tuning in for as well. So, Rachel, what about your podium for tomorrow?
As much as I would love for Fernando to win, I just have a hard time seeing it happen, even if he can get in front of Max at some point. I know it's really hard to overtake here, of course, but it's Max in that Red Bull. It's just so fast. So I'm going to go Max for the win, Alonso for second, and I'm also going to put Esteban on the podium. I'm Esteban third.
Okay. And Tom, your spicy podium?
I'm going to go Alonso P1. Yes. Yeah. I'm doubting myself now. Checo P2. Lol. No. No. It's going to be Alonso in P1. And I think Max is going to lose out to Alonso at Sandoval, and Ocon's just going to go and then just basically slip his way through to second, and Max is going to end up P3.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go for something a little bit bold. I'm going to say it's going to be a Charles Leclerc win. He's finally going to end the curse. It's very much a bold prediction as well. He's not going to get a penalty. There's Alonso and Verstappen are going to wipe each other out into Sandoval, and Leclerc is going to gloriously come home to win. Esteban Ocon will not finish second. It will be Carlos Sainz, and Lewis Hamilton rounds out the podium. So there's my incredibly not going to happen predictions there. So Louis, if you can top that, have you got a bold prediction for us?
Checo to win the race. No, I'm just thinking back because I was start of season predictions. I did actually put Leclerc to win the race, and so I kind of hope for not only just your sake, Tom, but also my sake that it does happen. But my bold prediction I'm just going to say Checo will get points tomorrow.
That would be impressive. It would have to be some decent strategy and a lucky safety car, but he does have the quickest car on the grid, so it's possible. A bold prediction, Rachel?
I'm going to go Esteban wins the race. Let's say Fernando and Max do take each other out. Charles gets that penalty. Esteban's right up there. Esteban takes it.
That's a really good point. Really good point. If all that does happen, then we could well see an Ocon, Sainz, Hamilton podium. It is possible. Bold prediction from you, Tom.
I'm going to say no DNS through crash damage. So mechanical DNS, because things happen, but no DNS through hitting the barriers or hitting someone else or their teammate or a crane or whatever.
Wow, yeah. Well, I've already covered my bold prediction. I think I'm going to lump the whole lot in as one because that podium was never going to happen. But if you've enjoyed this podcast, we would love it if you could leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you get your podcasts. If you're one of those listeners who have not subscribed to the channel, why not like and subscribe now, and you'll never miss a show again. Don't forget to click the bell to know when we are live. We've got well over 2,000 subscribers now on YouTube, so thank you all for your support, and please consider sharing us with people that like-minded people who love Formula One to hear more from us. So before we go, Louis, do you want to plug anything or tell people where they can find out more from you?
Not really, but I will just say and reiterate everything Tom said. Make sure to subscribe to the Grid Talk. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter at F1 Chronicle.
Thank you very much, towing the company line as always. Rachel, what about Paddock Pals? Tell us about the Paddock Pals.
Yes, so Paddock Pals, it's a podcast I do with my cousin, Warren. So we keep it in the fam there. But yeah, you can check out our podcast pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Also, we're on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all the socials.
Excellent. I actually did have a listen to that the other day for the first time, so I'm a conversion. I'm converted now. So great podcast. Well done, Tom. Let's do a little plug for Formula Talk, as we've already heard enough about Grid Talk.
Yeah. So I co-host. excuse me. Sorry, I co-host Formula Talk alongside Delivery Sophia, who is a panelist on Grid Talk. So we cover F2, F3, F1 Academy. We also touch upon other racing series, but there are so many racing series. You know, there are only so many hours in a day, and we and it's it's worth a listen. If you're interested in the junior series, absolutely do it. I've got a slightly different sort of plug or something shout out today. So those of you who are watching may see I'm in a different background. I'm actually sitting opposite Mr. Horrox. He and I are podcasting. Podcasting together as I've been up in his neck of the woods because I have purchased a new car. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Maria, who I bought the car from, who we were chatting about F1, and she has dropped us a subscribe, follow, like, whatever you call it. So thank you very much.
The power of just spending a stupid amount of money on a car to get one extra subscribers. That is how committed we are to you all here on Grid Talk. So thank you very much for listening. All our race shows do go out live straight after the event, like today, and our audio version does go out slightly later. We are available on Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Casts. And we also run a Patreon. So if you want to help us contribute, please contribute to help us continue doing what we're doing. Everything does go back in the show, and we never buy biscuits or beer with it. We promise. We will be back tomorrow to review the Monaco Grand Prix. So goodbye for now, and we'll see you tomorrow.